the Malian civilians are essentially choosing between, okay, do we support the military or do we support jihadists? Because essentially we have two bad choices. Well, the Malian government has killed, this is according to the armed conflict location and event data, 918 civilians, and Janim and ISIS have killed 232.
They consistently are style over substance.
On the back foot all the time.
And they're on the back foot. And they're really on the back foot now. And they're constantly putting out, we're striking back against them. And there's no evidence that they're really doing very much.
I think if I was high level in the military, would I do a coup? I mean, there's no way I'm going to die for a failed strategy, right? If you really want the Malian state to survive, you're going to have a new leader. But that coup itself could be so destructive, you could just open the gates to the jihadists to take everything.
Hey, welcome to On the Fringe. I'm Gavin. I'm here with my good friend Dave and my other good friend, Stuart. Stuart, welcome back on the pod. It's been a little bit, but we have need of your expertise once more. On April 25th, something very significant happened in the Republic of Mali. There was a series of armed, coordinated attacks across the country. The defense minister was killed. His house was car bombed. He was killed along with much of his family. And I believe the chief of military intelligence was killed or at least severely wounded as well. So this was a big blow to the military junta that's governed Mali since 2021. What significance do you think this has for the overall region?
I think if things continue as they are, I don't see how the Malian state exists in its current form by the end of the year, if not even sooner. We're looking at an attack, probably the worst they've had in over a decade. Now, Mali is well known to be partnered with the Russians to tackle the jihadist threat in that country, but the Minister of Defense was the Russophile in the cabinet. He can speak Russian. He trained there for a while. So for him to be killed is a humongous blow for the regime in terms of their strategy going forward. The fact their head of intelligence was, don't know if he died, but we know he was severely injured at least. Basically says there's a humongous intelligence breach. How do the jihadists all know where these people live? It means something. It means people are speaking. The fact that even the head of the junta had to be evacuated from his residence, it shows there is chaos going on site. I'm looking at a map right now. It shows the different places got hit. The way this was organized, because it's jihadists who did this, but they partnered with a separatist group in the north, which is mainly full of Tuaregs. They're like the ethnic group who live in the north of Mali. Because it's coordinated, you had attacks going on in the capital and in areas outside the capital, which is where the ministers were living, and in northern bases, meant that there was a really disorganized response from the Malian government because they couldn't send any reinforcements to the north because they were dealing with the situation in the south. As it stands, I mean, the Junta leader Goita has spoken, but I show the clip of it to Gavin, and I think you can agree the man looks like he'd seen a ghost. This didn't look like a man who was in
You'd
control.
have a lot of faith in, yeah.
No, it's like he's shaken. And I think the three scenarios I can see is one, the Malian state somehow, gathers itself and goes to the offensive and takes back some of the land it's lost. It's lost bases in the north. We're going to that, I suppose. Or there is a complete collapse, Syria style, quick move to Bamako, and there's this chaos, and maybe the country splits in half between the separatists and whatever. Or I think there could be a coup inside where the military just go, well, this ain't working. We need a new approach. We've lost the north. We've lost serious people in the junta. We need a new direction. I think the idea that Goita could still be in charge with this Russian-led sort of attack against the jihadists, I think it's for the birds, frankly. It doesn't work. And if you continue at this, you're going to lose more land, really. So but I don't know which scenario is going to play out currently.
Well, it sounds like, you were talking about this. There are huge intelligence gaps that the Malian army essentially they can't fill. And it looks like too, I mean, from my understanding of what's been going on over the last week, that the roads are some of the key terrain in the country. And if you can actually keep those roads, you can take possession of those roads if you are Janim or terrorist groups, and you can stop fuel from coming into the capital city, into Bamako, then essentially you're going to be able to squeeze the current Malian government. And they're essentially going to be at the mercy of, you were saying, other people in the military or the terrorist groups, and they really don't have any sort of a future. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think people should understand that some of the geographies of these countries, you'll have a city, well, I could say it's like a large town, some of them. There's nothing else really of significance for miles and miles around. And there's only one road going to this place, in and out. So if you cut off enter and exit, these places are blockaded. And that's what started to happen. That jihadists can just, we're talking about a road only 2 lanes big, right? It's not hard to blockade this thing. And then you just have a checkpoint on one end, a checkpoint on the other. Now anything big like a truck can't really get out without you saying it can. And that's happened. And I know it's actually, I'll say it's quite shocking is an understatement. It's quite frightening to see what's happening, because you just have a sense of there is this idea of these juntas being strong and powerful and military men, you have military ideas and how to solve problems. And you see an attack like this where it's so clear they're on the back foot and we're just, reacting and don't know what's going on. And you say, well, if the only thing I'll briefly mention is that when this all started in 2012, something like this happened then, where the jihadists were going towards the capital city, the army was collapsing. Then they, frantically called Paris, sent in jets, bombed these people, and then they were able to take back some land, ended in the stalemate. It's kind of where it ended up where we are now. But it's never been this bad as of then. But this time the French will not be coming, because they've kicked out the French as part of their views of geopolitics. But, the thing I'll briefly say, and I'd like to bring Gavin in because I would like to hear some of his points, is that, the French were there for a decade. They had a stalemate, but it wasn't achieving anything. A bit like America and Afghanistan. It just comes to a point, something breaks. We just and here it was just the Malian army just went, this isn't working. We don't feel respected by the French. We don't feel they have any ideas. Kicking them out, let's do something else. They went to the Russians. This has basically shown the Russians also can't do it. And I think the mistake was they partnered with the Russians, then Russia invaded Ukraine. Their focus is basically on that. And they can't really give too much equipment or too many men, because Ukraine always needs more. So you're just getting, the bottom of the barrel from them. But Mali now, no one else really in the West is interested in helping. And I don't know who they can call, pretty much. And now I'd like to pass that to Gavin or Dave, if you feel you have who can they call now?
I mean, I don't
Ghostbusters.
think...
No.
Yeah. No, I mean, kind of, right? Like, they've burned so many bridges. There's been very consistent chatter that I've seen that they've reached out to the Americans and that there have been talks. But I think, like a lot of things that the Americans are doing right now, having a conversation with someone doesn't mean very much. So they're talking to people who might represent the interests of the United States, who might not, who might be affiliated with the embassy, who might not. But there's nothing on the table. And I think there's no immediate prospect, especially considering that America is a little preoccupied at the moment as well. I don't think there's any short-term prospect of anything approaching the sort of military aid they probably need to stabilize at this moment. Again, they're not going to get it from the French. In Niger, the one place that seems possible, but I think is unlikely for other reasons, is Turkey.
Yes.
Because the Republic of Turkey already has a strong presence in Mali. They've been selling them drones for a long time. They have apparently trained or have people working in the Presidential Guard. depending on
Yeah.
who you ask.
But
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 that doesn't mean very much.
you're talking about training a presidential guard, selling drones, and then being asked, "Can you supply 6,000 soldiers?" I mean, it's the completely
And they
different.
can. And they
Yeah.
can because they have their own counterinsurgency issues. They have a border with Iran. They have a border with Syria. They're in NATO. They have a robust military presence in Libya and Somalia, which is
Yeah.
taking up a fair bit of their time. They're not sending anyone. Realistically, they're not going to.
The
And I
other
think,
thing,
no,
I
go
want to
ahead.
jump in too. Real quick, I want to go back to what you were saying about the US not being involved. And if you go back to Trump's first term as president, he was very proud that we removed ISIS, the United States removed ISIS from the Middle East. And essentially now you would look at this and go, okay, if you have ISIS or terrorist groups that are starting to take root, or they have taken root in West Africa, you would think there would be a little more interest in actually trying to step in doing this and saying, okay, we are going to support these governments from being taken over
That
by
would involve
terrorist groups.
consistency. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would involve consistency. And also, haven't we already defeated them by bombing those huts in Nigeria? Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, those what, 8 Tomahawks that hit those goat herders?
I think there's also the thing that remember, US used to have a massive military base in Niger, which they had to abandon
Yes.
under
Hmm.
Biden.
Yeah.
I might add, so it's not a Trump thing, but that is probably rattled the Pentagon to be like, if we invest anything here, there's no guarantee we're going
No.
to make anything, and we
They've
could
been
even lose
burned.
everything.
Yeah.
So I imagine there's a feeling of like, yeah, we got burnt there once. Also, when Trump was president last time, US soldiers died in Niger, and he did not
Yeah.
like that one bit. And basically said after that, it's like, no, they operate drones alone. They don't do patrols. So
Which is
he
what they're
is,
doing in Nigeria at the moment. I
Hmm.
yeah.
mean,
So I
and
feel like,
again, something we're not talking about is there are 200 to 400 American service people in Nigeria at the moment.
but that's a topic
But
for another day.
that's a topic for another day. But again, as you say, they're all operating drones. None of those people will ever see the field. And again, I can confirm, because I was there 18, 19, 20. There was a feeling that if because there were rumblings then, there was a feeling that if they were forced to leave, because there was the base in Agadez as well.
That's
If
one
they
in
were,
Niger. Yeah.
that's the one that, well, there were two. There was the one in
Oh,
Agadez,
no.
there
So
was
I'm
the
talking
one
about the
in
one in the
Niamey,
capital. I'm
the
sorry.
one in
Yes, you're talking about
Niamey.
the military
Yeah.
Niger. Right.
I mean,
Sorry.
we had a very extensive presence there. And again, for people who are maybe unfamiliar, Mali and Niger are right next to each other. They have a massive border with each other. They're actually, I would say, very similar demographically. They have a shared
Mm.
French colonial history. They're very close in many ways. We had a huge military presence in Niger. It was, I think, the biggest military presence we had in Africa at that point.
Maybe.
That was wound up at 22 or 23. I always forget the year.
Or
When
when
they
you
came,
left the base in
yeah,
Niger, I think it was maybe even 24. I mean, oh, well, actually, it has to be under Biden, so it has to be 24 at its
I think it
latest.
was.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think it was 24. So that's relatively recent. I would be very surprised if people, maybe people in state are receptive to it, but I imagine if you ask anyone in the Pentagon, they're going, absolutely not,
Yeah. No,
because that,
we don't see success here. Yeah.
no.
I'd also like to add, Mali is part of a grouping, the Alliance of Sahelian States, which includes its neighbors Niger and Burkina Faso, and they group
Hmm.
together initially because ECOWAS, which is the wider grouping of West African states, was saying we don't like these coup d'etats and military leaders. We are going to make a stand against it. And these military leaders clubbed together and said, if you invade one of us, you invade all of us. ECOWAS backed off. Now, there's been a lot of rumblings that, they're going to have some joint force and they're helping each other fight jihadists. And I'm sure there's been some small scale assistance across borders, but I have not seen anything from Niger or Burkina about how they're going to help Mali tackle what's just happened. There's been nothing. I mean, I don't think they know. They can't, right? I mean,
There
it's just,
have been some statements from state press organs saying we were involved in airstrikes, which is kind of a surprising statement because really neither of those countries have many planes. And again, we've both been looking at the Association of Sahelian States for a while, and unfortunately, because we both sort of had high hopes in the beginning, they consistently are style over substance.
Yeah, on the back
They're
foot all the time.
and they're on the back foot, and they're really on the back foot now. And they're constantly putting out, oh, we're striking back against them. And there's no evidence that they're really doing very much. And there's quite a lot of evidence that, Mali has essentially abandoned most of the north of the country,
Yeah,
except a few major population centers. That
yeah,
increasingly their control of the south is uncertain. Again, all the strikes that happened that we're talking about today, the ones that killed people in the government, that happened south of Bamako. That
yeah,
happened really in the heart of the country. So this is very serious. And again, this is something I keep coming back to. This is sort of the failure of the one counterinsurgency strategy that these countries have seemed to have had since the beginning, which is let's shoot people and God will sort them out. And there's
yes.
not much, and it goes back to what we were saying about intelligence. You would think, okay, getting some human intelligence, getting some people inside these organizations, finding a way to get people in so you can figure out what they're doing. Clearly, that's not happening.
In fact, the reverse. It's the
Hmm.
jihadists who know about them. That this is the thing. And I mean, the other thing is the Russian presence is in all these countries, but it was the biggest
Hmm.
in Mali. In Burkina, I don't think they got more than a few hundred people. I think in Niger, maybe it's 1,000, maybe a bit less. So if the
It's
country the
quite a
biggest,
bit less.
yeah,
Quite a
if the
bit
country the
less.
biggest, I mean, and also it's the fact that, the Russians are based in the north. They basically fought for a day and a half. Apparently, it's very
Hmm.
fierce. But once they learned that the defense minister was killed, they were like, "Fuck, that's it. We're giving up." It's just we don't know what's coming on, and that's when they basically start organizing their retreat with the jihadists. I just think that the other thing I like to mention what Gavin said, if they can strike Bamako and the town of Kati, which is where the ministers were based. I mean, to describe what Kati is to people, it's like I think every country is this. What's the town near the capital city where rich people prefer to live because it's a bit more calmer, and they can go there. That's where they attack. That place is very near to the border of Guinea, so it means could they even go there? Where that place isn't too far from Senegal. Could they go there? I mean, from this attack, is there anywhere they can't strike in this region? I'm not even sure anymore because I used to think it was like yes, they're in the north, there's some towns in the centre, but the south is pretty safe, although there was the odd attack here and there. Now I have no idea. I don't know where is safe in Mali. Basically nowhere. And as a government, how can you say this to your citizens and then say, "But I'm going to fix it" when I just lost my second in command? Who not only, I mean, we make it seem like he was killed. Let's say it reality. I think I said to Gavin, BBC Verified showed a satellite footage of this man's house. They drove a truck full of explosives to his house and blew it up, and his house was completely flattened. And not only that, they took out a mosque next door and killed everyone in there. So, number one, these people say they fight in the name of Islam, but they're quite happy killing Muslims. So clearly, that's false. But we're not talking about a targeted assassination. I mean, driving a truck to a guarded man's house and blowing it up and getting away with it. I mean, this is the scale of what we're talking about. You know, the head of the junta, I don't think it's even clear where he is currently.
No.
I think, yeah, because how can he? Because it's clear there are moles in his organization.
And so, I mean, just before we wrap this up, the one thing that I have been seeing today, because the news has sort of calmed down a little bit, but currently it seems like the Malian military is investigating a number of people for collaborating with the jihadists.
Yeah,
And it's a major problem. And it basically confirms what you're talking about, which is at the very least, they have major leaks within their own organization that are not being addressed. and effectively have no way of countering it. And there's no guarantee that, because once you sort of open the can of worms of hunting for moles, that could be productive, but that could also be very damaging and counterproductive to the Malian army. And
Hugely.
hugely. And I think,
I also feel
you said you had, no, go ahead.
If I was a Malian soldier, low
Mm.
level to mid level, there'll be some who'll even want to become moles because they can see where the wind is blowing. Someone will
Yeah.
be like, well, I want to save my own skin. So, giving intelligence to these people to protect potentially yourself and your family, there'll be some who'll be making that calculation. Of course. I mean, back to the previous pod I did with you guys, what was it? With apologies to yam farmers. Some of these yam farmers join the military and now they want to live and they don't. I would even say it's very much like the Afghan army in 2021. I mean, the wind is blowing somewhere. Some of them will say, is it worth fighting for a lost cause? And I think some of them have looked at what's happened and may determine that's what's happening. That's why I said at the start with my scenarios, the junta could rally together. I think if I was high level in the military, would I do a coup? 150%. I mean, there's no way I'm going to die for a failed strategy, right? If you really want the Malian state to survive, you're going to have a new leader. But that coup itself could be so destructive, you could just open the gates to the jihadists to take everything. So there's so many things at play.
And on those same lines too, I mean, you look at the Malian civilians. The Malian civilians are essentially choosing between, okay, do we support the military or do we support jihadists? Because essentially we have two bad choices. Well, the Malian government has killed, this is according to the armed conflict location and event data, 918 civilians. And Janim and ISIS have killed 232. You've got two bad choices, but one is going to offer you some sort of a support network, potentially.
They do. What did I read as well? Like in the north, it's clear they want to govern, right? They're setting up parallel structures. Gavin even showed me that representatives from the Tuareg separatists were in France like 2 days later, which really raises a lot of questions in that what exactly do the French know? How are they involved? I struggle to believe an African country can have an attack by a separatist group and a separatist groups in the European capital within a week. What's going on? I'm not going to say more than that. I'm just saying there's an open question what on earth is happening here. I mean,
there's
I don't
definitely,
want to make conspiracy things, but when I saw that, I was flabbergasted.
Well, it was also, I mean, it was funny the way I saw it too, because it was a throwaway line. It was essentially, but when we talked to so and so, as he was going off to meet French defense officials, and you're going, hold on a second. It was just a little shocking, and that was from the AFP. So, a fairly reliable French news source.
France doesn't support these countries because they threw out their soldiers and denounced them for being colonialist oppressors. But at the same time, when you see that they are clearly talking to people willing to completely undermine and destroy these regimes or states, you ask the question: were they entirely wrong with their assumption of what they see France as? Because I'm actually shocked that that hasn't been reported more. That is that's a shocking allegation to be coming out.
What and again, it wasn't even framed as an allegation. It was just, oh yeah, no, he's on the way in the building. Yeah,
he's in Paris. Like what? And so it means they've been talking to them before, because you can't tell me you do an assault and you get a meeting in with a minister or a top civil servant in 2 days. Nah, that's not how it works.
you just write a jaunty email to the Gmail account and you go, "Can we have a meeting, please?" And they go, "Yes."
It means
here's our
some
Calendly
baguettes.
link.
Yeah.
It means this was prearranged in some way, or they have already been talking. So having a follow-up meeting wasn't difficult. That is clearly the case. And so for Burkina Niger and what's left of the Malian regime, they haven't fallen yet. What is their next move? We don't know. But I'm sure they are trying to strategize a way out. But, does this mean that middle ranking military men in Niger and Burkina Faso start getting jittery as well? It can happen.
Time will tell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We'll be keeping our eyes on this.
We will. Absolutely. And I'm sure we'll probably have some, knowing our luck, there'll be some dramatic development right after we do this pod. Anyways, thank you so much for coming on, Stuart. It's always a pleasure. And to our On the Fringe community, please like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your enemies, share with people you don't know on the internet, because why not? It's fun. Stuart nods approvingly. Anyways, thank you so much. And you will be hearing from us soon, once again, on the Fringe. Dave?
Mm-hmm.
Button time. Hit the button.